And good morning, Lake Norman. This is Cornelius, Mayor Woody Washam, and it is a pleasure to be back with you today with a very, very special program. You're going to hear from one of our esteemed citizens that has lived in our community quite a while and has quite a history here of doing some really, really great things. And, you know, as an elected official, all of us have people in this community that we trust and turn to and ask advice of. And of course, you know, I've got to say that my wife is probably the number one, but close behind her is a pretty short list of folks that have lived a lot of good times here in this community and done a lot of great things here for our region. And there's no one closer to the top of the list for that than my friend Carroll Gray. Carroll, welcome.
Thank you, Woody.
It's
Good
just,
to be here.
It's just great to have you here. We've done so much together, and we go way back quite a bit. And you know, Carroll's claim to fame in this region, at least, he's got a lot of claims to fame around the Southeast. But I will say his claim in this region is that he was the former president of the Charlotte Chamber of Commerce back when they were called that. Isn't that correct, Carroll?
It is, and
So
we miss that name today.
we do miss that name today. It's changed a little bit. You know, everything's changed a little bit, I guess. But so tell us a little bit about where you came from. You know, it takes a real special person to get into chamber work. That's not the easiest profession that you could find. So you've served several chambers, haven't you?
Woody, I have. I first was bent toward the chamber profession by my cousin in Lancaster, South Carolina, and got to know his good friend, Charlie Bundy, in Lancaster. And Charlie persuaded me to give chamber work a chance.
Wow.
And I did, and gee, I couldn't get a real job, you know.
How many years later, how long were you
It's
in
been
that business?
a total of 45.
45. My goodness. God, my goodness. I got you beat a little bit. I've been in banking a little over 50 now.
Oh, my God.
So I don't know, for some reason, just keep going. So where did you start your chamber activity?
I started off in Columbia,
Okay.
South Carolina, and worked there on staff and learned the ropes from a guy who was prominent in the business. And then I got an opportunity to come to Charlotte on the staff.
Mm-hmm.
And the chamber exec at that time in Charlotte was Charles Crawford.
Yes.
And I learned a lot from Charlie. I learned a lot of things to do and some things not to do.
Exactly.
Which is part of the survival in the business of working for an association.
Oh, no doubt about that. So take me back to your high school. Where are you from, Carroll?
I'm from Laurens, South Carolina.
Okay. Yes.
Laurens is named after Henry Laurens,
Uh-huh.
who was a hero in the Revolutionary War.
Uh-huh. Well, that's pretty awesome. And you went to where for your college work?
I started off thinking I could play basketball at Wofford. Was at Wofford a year, and then I transferred to the University of South Carolina, and I continued to think of that as the Carolina.
Yes.
But I moved to Charlotte, and there's another version of Carolina up here.
Oh, yes. Definitely. You hear a lot about that, I'm sure, don't you?
I
I hope
do.
that didn't get you in trouble in your chamber work along the way, but it probably did.
Well, actually, my career, my first job as the chief executive was in Gainesville, Florida,
Mm-hmm.
in chamber business. And then I got a chance to go to Greenville, South Carolina,
Wow.
and was there for 8 years. And then to Charlotte in 1984. And somehow I managed to stay employed until 2006.
Oh, that's absolutely awesome. And you lived in Cornelius quite a few years, haven't you?
I did. My wife and I moved to Charlotte originally, and we found ourselves living in Montebello.
Yes.
and I had to travel Sharon Road every day.
Oh, wow.
And we decided to move to a town that was more like where we were born.
Gotcha.
And it was Cornelius at that time. Woody, there were 2,000 people that lived in Cornelius in 1988.
That's incredible. That's incredible. And it grew from when I was growing up here from about 1,200. So pretty good percentage by the time you got here for sure.
Well, it's somehow people discovered the actual, all of the exits on this side of the lake are in Cornelius. If you think about it, Davidson has one, but it's landlocked
Yes.
with like the interstate.
Right.
But recreationally, they're all in Cornelius.
Yes.
Even the one at the dam, people think that's in Huntersville. It's not.
Yeah. That's pretty incredible. Pretty incredible. Well, I think we all know that this lake has made our town pretty special. It really has. There's a lot of things that have made our town special. But folks like you that have gone through your many years of a great career and retired here have brought so much to our community, because you lived quite a life in Charlotte, and I expect you got to know an abundance of movers and shakers in that town. Probably knew all the mayors, and but I just believe that you probably rubbed elbows with every level of individual in the city of Charlotte. Isn't that correct?
Yes, you are. It is correct. When I was in Charlotte initially, I got to learn a generation ahead of me. So I was on the staff here in my 30s, in my 20s actually. And when I came back as the exec, that group essentially had moved on.
Right.
And I got to learn a new leadership group. And believe me, that leadership group was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Cliff Cameron, who was chairman of the bank you worked with.
Exactly, my old boss. Great guy.
Mr. Cameron was chairman of the committee that hired me.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to meet the leadership of the city that was on the committee.
Right.
And quite a bench, if you look at it that way, from a sports analogy. It was a great team of leaders who were successful in their business, but they also loved Charlotte and were willing to give their time and their corporate support and personal support to growing Charlotte into the type of community that we wanted, and sure enough, it's coming around us.
Exactly. It built the foundation that brought us to the City and the beautiful and progressive city that we are today, and that's a lot to be proud of. You laid that foundation, and it was a critical time in the history of our region, if you will. So it was a fantastic piece of our history here in this region. And we will be right back with Carroll Gray and more to come.
Be a part of the conversation.
We can't fix America's debt by starving its people.
Have your say.
One shooting after another, and we're doing nothing to solve it?
This is WSIC News Talk Now.
Well, the heat just stays tough through the rest of our work week. Plenty of sunshine today as we're back in those mid-90s. Feels like temperatures in low 100s. Really got to be careful if you're working outside, drinking plenty of water, trying to stay hydrated. Getting in out of the heat from time to time, too. That'll really help. Most of us will stay dry. An isolated shower or storm, not out of the question. We'll drop back into the muggy mid-70s overnight for most of us around the Lake Norman area. Another day of tough heat and mainly dry for our Friday coming up. That's your forecast from the WSIC Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Chase Myers.
The WSIC app is available now wherever you get your apps, featuring local deals from great local businesses like Nina's Boutique,
Here's your WSIC community calendar. Birkdale Village in Huntersville welcomes back Dave Scott Crow and his Amusination Academy performance on Thursday, August 1st. Dave's concert and Pick Me Up open mic are events for the kids and the entire family. The show begins at 4:30 p.m. on the green. Parents, grandparents, and kids of all ages are welcome on Thursday afternoon at Birkdale Village for Dave Scott Crow's Amusination Academy. Langtree Live in Mooresville continues their free concert series on Thursday, August 1st. Langtree Lake Norman is open for eats and drinks all afternoon, with Bad Romeo taking the stage at 7 p.m. From AC/DC to Whitesnake, Bad Romeo will bring back your 80s rock memories. Grab your lawn chairs, arrive early to get your favorite spot, and enjoy Langtree before, during, and after the show. We'll see you in Mooresville Thursday night for the Bad Romeo concert at Langtree Lake Norman. Friday night, Birkdale Village hosts Live Under the Oaks in Huntersville. String Theory presents a free concert from 6 to 8. Birkdale restaurants are open for dinner, while Red Rocks will serve beverages on site at the concert. Come on out Friday night for the String Theory concert at Birkdale Village. The Cookout Monster Truck Bash is at the dirt track at Charlotte Motor Speedway on Saturday, August 17th. Sparks will fly as the metal-bashing 2,000 horsepower machines return for a night of high-flying action on the planet's most diabolical outdoor course. Gates open at 4 p.m. Bring a Cookout Cup for free early access to the pit party beginning at 3:30. Pit party includes monster truck rides, inflatable slides, bounce houses, face painting, an autograph session, and souvenirs. Opening ceremonies will begin at 7. Visit charlottemotorspeedway.com or the CMS app for information and details. To keep up with all the events happening around the community and much more, including amazing local deals, download the WSIC News app today.
We are back with more of About Town with Cornelius Mayor Woody Washam on 105.9, 100.7 WSIC. Local starts here.
And we're back. Cornelius Mayor Woody Washam here, and we have esteemed guest Carroll Gray, the former president and CEO of the Charlotte Chamber of Commerce. Been living in our community since, what was that year, Carroll? 2000.
I bought a lot here in 1998, and we built a house and moved in spring of 89.
89, my goodness. Well, I mean, you're almost a native.
35 years.
That's incredible. That really is. So, as we move through Carroll's great contributions to this community, we were talking about some of the movers and shakers that you have worked with during your tenure at the chamber and beyond. So, tell me who your favorite was and who your toughest was. Give us some categories and give us some descriptions, because it'll be a topic that a lot of our listeners will recognize, I'm sure. A lot of names.
As I mentioned, I was actually, my math is a little weak. It's 45 years since 1988. But the most effective leader is Bill Lee.
Yes.
In 1985, 6 months after I had come to Charlotte, the leadership wanted to do a goals program. In other words, the first few months, I was learning just the basics of the city, talking to a lot of people. And it was apparent that we needed a direction in Charlotte that the business community could get behind. Obviously, the city and the county and the state, but the city and the county primarily were partners that we needed to get together with the business leadership. There was not a good partnership back in the mid-'80s, but we felt that a goals program, which involved the business leaders, civic leaders, elected leaders, would be a good idea. And we hired a consultant and did a goals program in a systematic way of a committee of 100 that Bill Lee chaired. And we came up with a 17-goal program. and we publicized it and began to work as a chamber program on some of those goals because all of them were not necessarily our first priority. For example, we wanted to amplify our public education system. And at the time, it was rather unfocused. The schools had very little technology in the schools at all. So we worked hard to try to get basic technology funded, if necessary, partially by the business community in the high schools. And so on. And we worked on that goal for quite a while. But 7-8 years later, I get a call from Bill Lee. And he says, I've been keeping track of our goals program, and we have just attained, in his opinion, the 17th goal that we've gotten all of them. And I said, Bill, I'm surprised that you kept track of this for this long. He says, why not? My name was on it. So I think that was a reflection.
When I tell our listeners about Bill Lee,
Bill Lee at the time was chairman of the board of Duke Power Company.
Yes.
Now, later they acquired Pan Energy out of Houston, and it became Duke Energy and not just Duke Power because they grew through some acquisitions. And this company, basically, Bill was a child of one of the original founders of the company.
Wow.
And grew up in the company. He was an engineer by education and became a leader of the nuclear power business. And we've got a very large memento of Bill Lee and Duke Power sitting about 4 miles from where we are having this radio show.
Yes, we do.
Nuclear station of Duke Energy today, and it is a very important company to this part of the state and the western part of South Carolina as well.
Sure.
And the legacy of Bill Lee throughout this community is he set a standard that people are still trying to maintain.
Yeah, he was a great guy. You know, my dad spent about 40 plus years with Duke Power, Duke Energy.
I didn't know that.
And actually did all the surveying that bought the land that Lake Norman now covers.
Goodness gracious.
So he had the roadmap of where Lake Norman was going to fill, and should have bought a bunch of property out there over that time, but that didn't happen. He had too much integrity to work behind the scenes to do that.
Wow. Woody, you ought to be on this show.
I ought to be a multimillionaire if he would have bought a couple parcels out there, but that's not the case. So anyway, but a lot of fine examples of folks that really laid the fabric and the foundation of our community. And I know Bill was one of them, but there are others too. I had some experience with Hugh McCall along the way when we were doing some fundraising opportunities, which we'll talk about in just a minute. But I know you did too.
Yes.
So, I'm sure you knew all the bank CEOs there in town, Mr. Crutchfield as well as Hugh McCall. So Hugh McCall was a pretty amazing guy, wasn't he?
Hugh was totally amazing and still is, actually, and is still contributing significant time and energy and support to various things in the community. And we are delighted to have a man of his integrity and his stature still setting the standard for leadership in Charlotte.
It's absolutely awesome. It really is. And I know that we worked a lot with Hugh in raising money for the Kane Center for the Arts. And one of my early on experiences, a good many years ago, was putting Carroll Gray on our town committee to formulate what Kane Center for the Arts was to become. That was quite a journey. It was absolutely quite a journey, but what leadership did, oh my goodness, you provided was truly incredible. You had some hands-on experience that helped us all make such a difference in our road to finally get there and absolutely provide something that this community is so very proud of. And you know, as I see it, you know, the biggest amenity in this community is probably Lake Norman, but the next thing right behind it is probably Kane Center for the Arts.
I would agree with that. And we started our first meeting, and we really didn't know which way was north, south, east, or west. And we figured out a way to go, and the initial concept grew in stature, literally, from something smaller to something that really was designed for the future. The center, as those of you who've been there will know, is first class in every way. And we're delighted, and I feel very proud to have been involved in some small way in helping get it established.
Well, you and I worked really hard. I remember distinctly to hire our first executive director. I think, you know, that was certainly one of your claim to fames in that process. And I'll take a little credit too, because we knew who we needed to hire, and that was the guy that we finally did hire after a rigorous process of considering 83 people for that role, nationwide search, and we ended up bringing it right back home with Justin Dion, who has done a fabulous job to help make Kane into what it's become today.
There's no doubt about it. We met Justin for the first time actually in Salisbury.
We did.
Where he was working very effectively in a community that has given a lot of leadership to the performing arts.
Right.
And he was impressive, was running a very successful, not just performance-wise, but financially, and we liked that style. And as you know, we hired Justin, and he has come, and he's learned with us, and we've learned with him.
Right. Yeah, quite a unique person, and you know, gets the business model that we're trying to achieve out there, and you know, I'm just so proud of where that's headed, and the hard work we put in there. There's a lot of people's name on the plaque over there, if you will, that has truly made a difference to create something really fantastic, I think, for this community. So,
well, you say the community, Woody. I totally agree with that. But it's also a regional asset.
It is,
and it frankly is an effective competitor with Charlotte.
It very much is. So, more to come. Carroll Gray has touched so many aspects of our community, and we'll be right back to hear about more.
Be a part of the conversation.
I listen on the way to work.
Have your say.
It's more than just opinions, it's facts.
This is WSIC News Talk Now.
Well, the heat just stays tough through the rest of our work week. Plenty of sunshine today as we're back in those mid-90s. Feels like temperatures in low 100s. Really got to be careful if you're working outside, drinking plenty of water, trying to stay hydrated. Getting in out of the heat from time to time, too. That'll really help. Most of us will stay dry. An isolated shower or storm, not out of the question. We'll drop back into the muggy mid-70s overnight for most of us around the Lake Norman area. Another day of tough heat and mainly dry for our Friday coming up. That's your forecast from the WSIC Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Chase Myers.
Hi, This is Bob McIntosh with the McIntosh Law Firm in Davidson. Since 1997, we have been committed to providing our clients with competent, caring, and experienced legal services. Learn more at McIntoshLawFirm.com.
Looking for a large private room for your next work function? Or maybe you need a place to bring the whole family for a delicious meal? Pomodoros of Mooresville has the perfect space for your crowd. Book your next event at Pomodoros.com.
Hey folks, Justin Kazepis, owner of WSIC and host of Good Morning LKN. Terminix has been locally owned and operated in the Carolinas for more than 75 years. WSIC trusts Terminix for pest control, and you should too. Visit trustterminix.com to get started today.
Does your business provide coffee for employees or customers? Black Powder Coffee can supply you with fresh roasted coffee, a variety of daily signature blends including flavored coffees such as cinnamon roll and Kahlua and cream. We even have bourbon-infused coffee in collaboration with Southern Distilling Company. Visit blackpowdercoffee.com or stop by and see us at 261 Rolling Hill Road in Mooresville. Black Powder Coffee.
Morning Star Baptist Church loves its family, its community, and its country, but most importantly, loves Jesus Christ. Hear their ministry Sunday mornings at 9:30 on WSIC.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Apple and Amazon scheduled to release earnings reports after the close of trading today. Some analysts believe Apple investors' expectations may be running a little high. They point to regulatory challenges regarding the rolling out of Apple Intelligence in Europe and China, and don't expect the infusion of AI into products like the iPhone to create as much demand, at least initially, as 5G capabilities have. Apple's under pressure to give more information about expected demand for its next iPhone models, which will include AI. Wall Street went from warning that the likes of Ozempic and Wegovy might cut into demand for snacks to worrying that shoppers are cutting back for budgetary reasons. But the maker of Pringles and Pop-Tarts is reporting higher sales last quarter. Kellanova, formerly the Kellogg Company, says new products and marketing helped with that. Stocks have moved lower, the Dow down by around 0.7. The S&P and NASDAQ lower by around 2 to 3/10. I'm Scott Carr, Bloomberg Radio.
Call now to speak with Cornelius Mayor Woody Washam at 844-STUDIO-4. It's About Town on 105.9, 100.7 WSIC.
And here we go for the second half of our show today with former Charlotte Chamber President and CEO Carroll Gray. History runs deep in the Cornelius community. Moving here in the late 80s, he has touched down on so many critical things that have gone on in our community. And we were just talking about the Kane Center for the Arts, but there was a lot more. One of Carroll's first, I believe, post-retirement jobs was helping us create the Lake Norman Transportation Commission. That goes back a way, doesn't it, Carroll?
Yes, it does. Maybe 14, 15 years ago.
Yeah, something like that. And Cornelius and Huntersville took a little time off of that organization, but we've just now rejoined it, which I think was the right thing for us to do because we're stronger together as a region than we would be trying to work our own separate ways. And so I feel good about that direction that our town board has helped me forge in getting back into this organization. So there's a lot of work to do. It's absolutely a lot of work to do that we have certainly achieved. So what was that like in getting that set up?
Well, there's always been cooperation between Charlotte, Huntersville, Cornelius, Davidson, and Mooresville in some way. We're too close not to know each other and sort of have a feeling of empathy, really, or shared pain, depends on what the issue may be, with our neighbor. But the Lake Norman Transportation Commission was formalizing it and I provided for 3 or 4 years the staffing function to bring these communities together and discuss common goals, common problems. And legislatively, you had mentioned successful. Well, success in the transportation business often equates to money, because to resolve most transportation problems is very expensive. Not only the regulations, particularly with federal money.
Sure.
You get down to local money, and you have a scarcity which has to be shared. We don't necessarily share local money with our neighbors. We use our own money for our own roads, but we rarely can do it alone.
Correct.
Most of the time, you make a transportation decision in one town, it affects transportation in the other towns.
Or a development decision.
Development decisions
Exactly.
as well. And while we are autonomous in some parts of that picture, we need cooperation in others. So the Transportation Commission is an effective way. Each town, depending upon population, is represented on this board, and people understand it. And I mean, this helps us get closer to Mecklenburg County decision making, because most issues have to have county support,
right?
Particularly issues of taxation. So the partnership on roads extends to other functions as well.
It really does. And, we've all sort of got the same problems, if you will. If you really dissect them down, there's no town that some may be a little greater or not as great, but we generally deal with the same issues from town to town. And it's just important to stick together and talk together. And, you're always out for your own town, but at the same time, you can work collectively with the other towns and come out with a great outcome. We have literally millions of dollars now over a lot of hard work and a lot of years coming to North Mecklenburg in transportation funding projects, and they're underway. We've got 4 going on here in Cornelius right now. I guess almost a year ago, I just saw the need to pull a group of influential citizens together and talk about this problem that we had in Cornelius of not being able to build enough roads quickly enough, and of the expectations of our citizens. We'd pass bonds, we're throwing money at it, and we're creating a lot of good things coming our way, but just getting that going was a challenge for us. So we needed some emphasis from the right people to help us get that moving and figure out how to pay for it. And we had a great Mayor's Committee on Transportation that you were the vice chairman of, and we're assisting Jim Engel in pulling this together. I think that was the beginning of this outcome that we're experiencing today with these funded projects coming to pass. I think our community figured out that we were serious about it. The powers that be figured out that we were not going to let up, and I think it was a message, a nonverbal type message.
Well, excuse me. I think it certainly proved to be that, Woody. The volunteer group that you referenced had people on it that had some knowledge of this community and how it worked, but we were very fortunate to have the staff resources available to us, and I can't tell you how important that is, not only to helping the committee understand the various intricacies of transportation funding, but also the priority, how to get priority within the system. And Andrew Grant, Wayne Herron are 2 walking encyclopedias.
Yes.
When it comes to transportation minutia.
Absolutely. And in the minutia we dove for sure. And the cool part about it is a lot of folks that were smart folks that had some political influence really needed some additional knowledge to help us pull it together and give us some advice that would make a difference. And they did that. They got behind it. They did it. And here we are, a beneficiary of many discretionary funding opportunities which have been available to us through CRTPO. And we've been successful in all that because we've been smart in how we've applied for that through the knowledge, particularly of this fantastic staff that you mentioned and many others that they have great relationships with. It's all about relationships in this business. And, you know, having been an elected official in this town for 11 years now, you do build relationships. And that is one thing that was important to me, to make sure that I could use those relationships to get this ball moving. And for sure, that's been the case. We're on our way. We're not nearly there, and we've got other challenges before us. But we've truly come a long way. So, thank you for your contributions. You helped us learn a lot. You helped us make some connections, and I think we certainly moved the needle. We absolutely moved the needle in the right direction. So, you know, these jobs like you've had for years, they're not elected, Carroll, but they're in a way big old political jobs, right? I mean, there's a lot of politics involved with moving that needle where you need it to go.
Well, Buddy, you make an interesting point. Relationships, I'm not sure I know of any enterprise that doesn't depend on relationships.
Right.
As I mentioned, I'm a big South Carolina football fan. And if you think about it, recruiting is the secret, of course. Either putting together a staff or recruiting athletes. It's all about relationships.
It is.
You know, and it could not be more true regarding the working of a municipality with its. You don't have to have relationships, but it sure helps.
It absolutely does. And you know, I think a lot of politicians and executives like you learn that the hard way once in a while. They have expectations that are unrealistic, but if you can just sit down and talk to people behind the scenes, you can really move that needle and make a huge difference. So, speaking of that, Carroll Gray was one of those that laid some foundation and basic groundwork to a topic that you have heard so much about in the past few weeks and days, and that would be the red line. A lot of history going on with the red line, and our next segment of the show, Carroll, I want you to tell some of those stories because we go way on back for years, absolute years, and all kinds of campaigns you've been active in terms of funding mechanisms to support the red line. Some have brought a lot of success to us, and some haven't. So anyway, we're going to talk about that because I'm real interested in that history, and we'll talk about where this is headed and where you think it ought to head. So,
sounds good.
Interesting topic.
Yes, sir.
So with that, we will be right back, Lake Norman.
There's more All Things Sane with NC Representative Jason Sane on the way from 105.9, 100.7 WSIC.
Well, the heat just stays tough through the rest of our work week. Plenty of sunshine today as we're back in those mid-90s. Feels like temperatures in low 100s. Really got to be careful if you're working outside, drinking plenty of water, trying to stay hydrated. Getting in out of the heat from time to time, too. That'll really help. Most of us will stay dry. An isolated shower or storm, not out of the question. We'll drop back into the muggy mid-70s overnight for most of us around the Lake Norman area. Another day of tough heat and mainly dry for our Friday coming up. That's your forecast from the WSIC Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Chase Myers.
Here's your WSIC community calendar. Brookdale Village in Huntersville welcomes back Dave Scott Crow and his Amusination Academy performance on Thursday, August 1st. Dave's concert and Pick Me Up open mic are events for the kids and the entire family. The show begins at 4:30 p.m. on the green. Parents, grandparents, and kids of all ages are welcome on Thursday afternoon at Brookdale Village for Dave Scott Crow's Amusination Academy. Langtree Live in Mooresville continues their free concert series on Thursday, August 1st. Langtree Lake Norman is open for eats and drinks all afternoon, with Bad Romeo taking the stage at 7 p.m. From AC/DC to Whitesnake, Bad Romeo will bring back your 80s rock memories. Grab your lawn chairs, arrive early to get your favorite spot, and enjoy Langtree before, during, and after the show. We'll see you in Mooresville Thursday night for the Bad Romeo concert at Langtree Lake Norman. Friday night, Brookdale Village hosts Live Under the Oaks in Huntersville. String Theory presents a free concert from 6 to 8. Brookdale restaurants are open for dinner, while Red Rocks will serve beverages on-site at the concert. Come on out Friday night for the String Theory concert at Brookdale Village. The Cookout Monster Truck Bash is at the dirt track at Charlotte Motor Speedway on Saturday, August 17th. Sparks will fly as the metal-bashing 2,000 horsepower machines return for a night of high-flying action on the planet's most diabolical outdoor course. Gates open at 4 p.m. Bring a Cookout Cup for free early access to the pit party beginning at 3:30. Pit party includes monster truck rides, inflatable slides, bounce houses, face painting, an autograph session, and souvenirs. Opening ceremonies will begin at 7. Visit charlottemotorspeedway.com or the CMS app for information and details. To keep up with all the events happening around the community and much more, including amazing local deals, download the WSIC News app today.
We are back with more of About Town with Cornelius Mayor Woody Washam on 105.9, 100.7 WSIC. Local starts here.
And off we go into our final segment with former Charlotte Chamber President and CEO Carroll Gray. And it's been a pleasure to have Carroll and catch up. It's been a while since we spent a little time together, and here we are on the radio show today, Carroll. It's a good way to do it. And we had started touching on an issue that has come to the forefront here in North Mecklenburg over the past months, I guess, few months. Something I've been working on actively for the last 3 or 4 years. You know, the history of bringing mass transit, i.e. Trains, to North Mecklenburg has been something that has been a dream of a lot of people for 25 years or close to it, Carroll. You were in the early stages of thinking about this transit plan for our county and our region and our city and all that. I know you were, and you know, we had a bond referendum almost 25 years ago and passed a 50-cent sales tax, which didn't benefit us here in North Mecklenburg because we didn't get what was promised, i.e. the rail service. And a lot of folks pretty upset about that. But how did all that come about? And I just know you were in the middle of it in your role as chamber chair or president back in the day.
Yes. I remember the run-up to the referendum was very important. We did a survey maybe 2.5 years before the referendum to find out what people thought about transit in Charlotte, in Mecklenburg.
Mm-hmm.
And we learned a lot of things. Primarily, we learned that people didn't know anything about it. They weren't necessarily opposed. They just were uninformed. So we, the leadership of the Chamber of Commerce, where I was working at that time, Charlotte Chamber, we got together a group of knowledgeable people that included city, county, state officials, federal officials, and we decided that we needed to educate people primarily about what we're talking about. And what we were not talking about, we were not talking about subways.
Right.
We were not talking about one technology or one type of train or one type of vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
We were looking at most everything. We visited cities that have transit. We visited Dallas and saw their DART system, Dallas Area Regional Transportation.
Mm-hmm.
We went to Montreal and saw their transit. So we had some idea of what was out there. And the state of North Carolina gave us $500,000 to through the efforts of leadership of Aaron Plyler of Union County.
Mm-hmm.
He was a senator at that time, and he had other help, of course, from the statewide leadership. And we used that money to do 5 transit corridor Urban Land Institute feasibility studies.
Sure.
Which involve people up and down each of the 5 corridors that go into Charlotte. I was of course I-77 up this way, and what was possible and what was desirable, and we defined initially. We spent about $100,000 on each corridor.
Sure.
And so at the end of this, process, which took about 1.5 years, we had educated in effect and heard from the residents and the elected officials in each corridor what they would like to see, what they'd be willing to support. And then when we had the referendum, we called all the support together, and as I recall, we had 69 or 70% effectiveness, because that was the vote in support of transit
mm-hmm.
in this, particularly in this this corridor. And 2 years later, someone wanted to repeal the half-cent tax.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to have a referendum whether to keep the tax or not. And it passed with higher support to keep the tax. Then we adopted the tax.
I see.
More people understood it.
Right.
So we are now considering an additional amount of taxation, sales tax, that will help continue the funding for additional investment. I think we are wise to have said to the community, you need to take care of us here in the North Corridor because you've been promising us. And I say, who are we talking to? We're talking to the leadership of Charlotte effectively.
Yes.
Because the leadership of Charlotte runs the CAT system. They provide the staffing for the transit system.
Yes.
So without their support, we don't get very far.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a message that needed to be communicated, and you have been part of that message very effectively.
Thank you, and it's been a journey. Goodness, it's been one of the tougher things that I've been challenged with mayor, as being your mayor here. But we've worked well within our region too to make it happen. A strong message coming from the 3 North Mecklenburg towns, which was a very consistent message. And thankfully, we were able to stay on the same page. And I will compliment Charlotte from the standpoint they kept us up to date. They finally realized that they had to. They needed us in this process. There's a process that this sales tax has to travel through. The good news right now, over and beyond the sales tax, is there's a lot of federal dollars available. They may not always be, but they're there now. And we feel confident that we can get our hands on that, but there has to be local matches to whatever that amount is. And to provide those local matches, we have to have this 1-cent sales tax. I don't like taxes of any sorts, but there are times that you've got to plan for the future. And if all the dominoes lined up and fell just the right way, we're still 10, 12 years out in ever seeing the first train come here. Just takes that much planning time, engineering time, and so forth. Obviously, you go back with some of the early negotiations with Norfolk Southern, and that had some pretty tough times with it as well. Am I correct?
You did. You did. It is correct, Woody. Excuse me. Excuse me. The railroad's point of view is that our job is to move freight.
Yes.
And not necessarily passengers, but nothing against passengers, but the revenue came from freight.
Right.
And for a long time, that's really all they wanted to hear.
Mm-hmm.
But over the years, with the leadership changing and information being better, I believe the leadership of Norfolk Southern is now willing to work with us under certain conditions.
Right.
And we have to meet those conditions, of course, which we certainly will, in order to have their support for use of their rail lines.
Right. It's a whole new ball game now because they are coming to the table, thankfully coming to the table, and that has truly made a fantastic difference. It really has, and I'm very proud of that. And not only are they going to let us use the tracks, they're going to sell the tracks to the city of Charlotte. That's going to be the way it works. But they're still going to maintain some rights to move some freight on those tracks as well. But CATS will control the schedule. They will control when they can do that and when they cannot do that. So it's going to put us in a whole new driver's seat. So, moving forward, this is such an opportunity for our region. Don't you agree with that?
Yes, it's generational, Woody, and I believe it's the time that we have to pull together and realize that we can get the funding under certain circumstances, and that includes local matching money.
It does. And, the good news about all this, which ought to get our citizens so excited, is of this 1 cent sales tax. They've always told me that we'll pay for transportation. We'll figure it out. You can tax us for it. We need it. We know you have to pay for it. Well, half of that 1 cent sales tax that is being considered and will have to be voted on by the state legislature, the Mecklenburg County Commissioners, and the citizens, half of that will be committed to building roads. Annually, it'll bring us millions of dollars to our community annually, probably 5 to 6 million just in Cornelius annually. So it's a game changer. This red line and that setting is a game changer for our community and something I couldn't be more proud of it. So, Carroll Gray, it has been a pleasure to have you with us today. It's been a chock-full conversation on lots of topics. We greatly appreciate all you have brought to our community over the years, and look forward to more contributions in the future. This is Cornelius Mayor Woody Washam. Thanks for listening today, and we will see you next week.